All right, everybody, we're back. We're going to try this again. I don't know what happened. It's the computer, it's the internet connection. I'm actually not at the usual site where I do this, so there might be some technical problems today. We might even be kicked off again, but we're not going to give up until we finish the show. All right, so you were about to read some chats or something, right?
Yeah.
Better do it
So
before you get
I
booted
got a
off.
chat. I know, right? So I got a chat from Darren Kane. He basically said, more than likely, I think it was the fact that 8 bombed and Trevorrow was not as safe of a bet as JJ, which I agree.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and of course, Darren Kane was so cool as to provide us some more quotable lines from Jurassic Park.
Well,
I
he
guess he
does aim
didn't
to
agree that
please,
there were
right?
a whole lot of quotable lines.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Gotta love Darren. Appreciate you, buddy.
and we love to quote movie lines. I mean, you and I have done a whole thing to where what was that one time where we just ended up quoting an entire like the whole conversation was movie lines. And I
Yeah.
don't remember. Oh, it was Ed. Ed was with us. It was this guy that
Yeah, we
we
had a
work
whole
with.
conversation.
Yep, one of our business partners too. He had just met us, and we had this whole conversation using nothing but movie quotes, and he was a little disturbed, needless to
Yeah,
say.
he was kind of confused.
But yeah, what else? Is there anything else in the chats that we should address?
No, not yet. I think
Not
that's
yet.
pretty much all I have for them. Yep.
All
But
right,
hey,
we'll
guys,
let
if
that
you're
go.
back, feel free to hit us
Yes,
back up.
hit us back up while you can. Internet connection's holding. I think I think we'll be okay for a little bit. All right, so we're still in the cantina. So what do we have next?
So next, there was something that was posted by Cinema Blend, and they were basically rated like all the top 10 Jedi, the top 10 most powerful Jedi, including Rey. So Rey is in this particular discussion as far as who's the most powerful. So I just want to know if you agree, or if our fans out there, who agree with this particular list. I'm going to say already out the gate, I don't agree with this list as far as the order
Well, why don't you do
in
this?
which, as far as who should be.
Right. And I'm right there with you on it. So why don't you just give everybody a rundown of the order?
All right. So the order is coming in at number 10 is Kiadi Mundi. Number 9 would be Plo Koon. Number 8 would be Kit Fisto. Where am I at? Number 8?
Mm-hmm. Number 7.
I think, yeah, number 8. I'm sorry, 7. Mace Windu. And then 6 would be Qui-Gon Jinn. 5, Luke Skywalker. 4, Rey Skywalker. 3, Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader, but more so Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
2 would be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And of course, our little green friend, Master Yoda, at number 1.
Yeah, they got the right people on there, but they're totally in the wrong order. Like, first of all,
Definitely.
Luke Skywalker should be number 1, hands down. I mean, I would say
Okay.
this is actually going to be difficult. And like I said, in order to keep the conversation spontaneous, we're trying not to be a news show. We're more of a discussion show, and try to be like real-time discussion between us, even though they are somewhat guided. We do come up with a general topical list or whatever, but I try to keep it as spontaneous as possible. So even though I've had this list, I didn't sit down and, look at it and try to really put something together. But I do think that they have the right people on the list. I just think, like I said, they're in the wrong order. Luke Skywalker should be number 1, if for no other reason, because both in the Legends books and even in new canon, he's the most powerful. He's the grandson of the Force. He reached his full potential as a Jedi, unlike Anakin, who actually would have been number 1 if it hadn't been for the fact that he turned to the dark side, and then of course, got in the lava and was all messed up. So that tends to diminish your capabilities and everything. Even though he recovered okay, I mean, as Darth Vader, he was ultra powerful in the dark side. In fact, I would place him as one of the highest level Sith. Even though you have a bunch of these guys from both Legends, some of which who have been made canon, and then you also have people that are in the new canon that you definitely would have to include up there. But, you know, as far as this list, I would definitely put Luke Skywalker as one. If we're talking about Anakin in his prime, well, Yoda would have to go number 2. Then probably followed by Mace. Then maybe Anakin, because we can only deal with what Anakin was able to do. Rey would have to be up there, though, because she is a Palpatine. And then it's really difficult to figure out where people like Ki-Adi-Mundi and all these other guys fit in, because unless you go into like the Star Wars Encyclopedia, I mean, we really didn't see enough of them. You know, we saw a little bit of them battling in the Clone Wars, but that's about it. But I don't know, is there anything that jumps out at you about this list?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely think Mace Windu is definitely higher. He's definitely over Qui-Gon Jinn. Are you high?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like, yeah, it's just that's what I'm saying. Like some of these people, I'm just like, who have you seen or read anything?
Right.
I mean, just by mere fact that like Mace Windu is second to Yoda on the council should
Right.
just tell you that. I mean, come on. And the fact that he actually went up to the Emperor and actually basically defeated him, and Qui-Gon could even beat Darth Maul. Like,
Exactly. I was just going to say, he
are you
couldn't
kidding
even
me?
beat Maul.
But his Padawan did. So it was like, really?
Mhm.
Like, that's kind of embarrassing if you really think about it. So, I mean, you know, so I definitely disagree with this list. I think that a lot of and I think a lot of this was based upon what they saw in the clone. I mean, in the movies, as far as like Kit Fisto, as far as
Well, kind of. I mean,
Ki-Adi
but
Mundi and Plo Koon, but
right.
I'm just saying, as far as I'm thinking, as far as battle wise, I think this is or force ability. But my thing is like just by sheer fact that these members were on the council, those should already be up higher anyway. So like, quite honestly, Qui-Gon should be towards the bottom of that list. To be honest with you, I think that you know Obi-Wan eventually he became a very powerful Jedi, but I think that I really don't know to what extent. I think he probably would have been a council member had he, you know, had the contact. I think eventually he would have found himself on the council. And at some points, he was actually commissioned to sit on the council, um, in some regards to, as an advisor to some things or whatnot. So he was highly regarded, um, as being powerful. So yeah, I think that definitely Ray, the thing about her is that like she has raw power, she has raw ability, um but I don't know how that really translates to a lot of different things because like it's not like Palpatine was conceived of the Force. Like, I can see why Anakin would naturally just be there because he's a son of the Force. You know, Luke being a descendant of that, he's definitely going to be high up there. Master Yoda is going to be high up there because he's had the most time to actually study the Force. So those guys are always going to be like your top 1, 2, 3, and probably 4, maybe the top 5, really.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, as far as Rey is concerned, could she best out Mace Windu? Mace Windu? I don't know. I don't know because yes, she's powerful, but we don't, and she has raw natural ability. But let's just face it, like she only beat Palpatine with the help of the other Jedi.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up, that a lot of people might say that, but yeah, I mean, she had the help. Plus, she had a little bit of Kylo in there too. But there's something that you gotta. I can make the case for Rey. I mean, if you look at her, she's an amazing fighter. She's gone further in the Force, I mean, that whole little thing where she flipped over the TIE fighter and cut off the wing. I mean, she's an expert fighter because, as you yourself have pointed out many, many times, I might add, she was a good fighter even before any of this stuff, right? Because she had to do hand-to-hand combat to survive on Jakku. So, she's very powerful in the Force. She's had all the Jedi texts, and she's been studying them. And by the way, the novel goes very deeply into that. Like when people in Rise of Skywalker, like the movie, were sitting there complaining about like, well, how does she know this and how does she know that? The novel actually goes into how she went back to the texts and, try to like study some of this stuff. But
true. I mean, and it's not like go ahead.
No, I'm good.
I think that you have to really look at the fact that, of course, she did have like Luke training her as well as Leia. So I mean, like she did have some teachers along the way, who were pretty powerful, who could kind of like condense pretty much like, okay, here's kind of how to. Okay, you got kind of some questions. She could kind of like, all right, hey Leia, what about this? Oh, okay, yeah, just do that. All right, cool. But I think that she has natural raw ability. And once again, you also have to look at timing. It's like, okay, see, I guess I kind of look at it from the standpoint of Mace Windu and all of them are powerful because they have experience on top of the knowledge, which allowed him to ascend to the place that where he was. The problem with Rey is that like she kind of like bypassed all that, not because she was just that truly gifted, not to say that that's not taking anything away from her Force ability, but what I'm saying is that because the dark side was rising, light had to meet it. So I think her ability was kind of sped up, so to speak, if you will, because she had to be able to kind of meet that threat, if you will.
Yeah,
whereas,
but the fact that
let's
she's
just
a
say if it was under normal circumstance.
Now, granted,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not taking away from her raw ability. Yes, her raw ability, her raw inclination to have the Force and to be powerful enough. Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying, I think a lot of her ability or a lot of things could have been amped up just because of the circumstance that was going on, as opposed to trial, dedication, and what I'm saying, because like, she pretty much went from like, if you really think about the timeline, Force Awakens, okay, something is awakening in me. I don't know what it is. Okay, you have that. What is it, like a day is the Last Jedi.
Well, yeah, right.
It picks up right there. And then you got maybe like 6 months to a year between Rise of Skywalker. So you mean to tell me, like, that's what I'm saying, is like when you really look at the timeline of this, it's kind of like, yeah, I think the Force helped you out a whole lot in this, as opposed to you just naturally being powerful. I mean, you had the natural ability or you had the framework to be this powerful, but it's like they kind of did like a rush job to kind of get you there, as opposed to, because at least with Luke, there were some years in between there.
Well, that's true. But here's what you got to look at, because why didn't the Force pick Broom Kid, right? There's a lot of people that were using the Force, but the Force is like, let's go with Palpatine's descendant. That would probably be our best bet, or my best bet, if the Force is a singular thing, I mean, but the thing is,
all right,
I think a lot of it, and keep in mind, I get that Rey wasn't a Palpatine to begin with. That was a JJ thing. In fact, that's one of the things that I really enjoyed, going back to the Duel of the Fates thing for a second. That's what I really enjoyed about Colin Trevorrow's script, was the fact that Rey was essentially nobody. She just, started getting accelerated. And I think the Force did have a lot to do with why she was, I guess, getting better, the whole time. But still, I agree.
I mean, because yeah.
I just wouldn't put her that high. I mean, I wouldn't put her like super high, but not maybe really low. Like maybe like in the middle. Like maybe like number 5 or something. Because, dude,
right,
I mean, she's better than
from
Plo Koon and Ki-Adi Mundi and all these other people,
Well, hey, yeah, this is why this is always going to be a constant debate. Um, we
Well,
do
the
have
other
some
thing
more
is,
chats though from.
oh, well, before you get to the chats, let me just make this one more point.
Okay,
And that
we'll
is,
get to the chats in just a
yeah,
moment.
exactly. The Cinema Blend was the one that put out this list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another thing that you guys have to look at is the fact that, look, this isn't like Star Wars or Lucasfilm or whatever putting out this list. This is some guy that works at a magazine or a website or whatever. I think Cinema Blend started out being a magazine, if I'm not mistaken. And y'all correct me in the chat. But pretty much it's a writer, right? And he's just putting together what he thinks.
Well, and to add to that point, it's cinema blend, which means they're focused more on the movies. So I think what their depiction is, they're depicting it based upon the movies, not the total accumulation of novels, books, and other mediums that we all, as true fans, may have seen. Mm-hmm. They may not be considering that. They might just be going based upon or predicating this upon the films alone.
Oh, completely.
But
you make an excellent point. But get to the chat. I know.
All right. So we have Kick 6116. They said, hello guys, how are you? Oh, we're doing pretty good.
We're doing good now. We're back on the air.
Yeah, we're back talking to you. And it asks, what about a spinoff of the 501 Legion?
Oh, the 501st. Well, before we get to that,
yeah, it's 501st.
Where are they joining us from? Which platform? It's new, guys. We're using Restreamer. It should have the logo, the icon next to the thing.
Yeah, I just don't know which one this is.
What does it look like?
It's a purple.
Oh, is it a purple T?
No, it's a purple. No, not the T. It's like it looks like a ghost or something, like a purple.
Could be Periscope. Well, whatever. So the 501st, that would actually be a cool thing. I would love to see a movie or something based. Well, because here's the thing.
Oh, it's on Heart. Purple Heart.
Purple Heart? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Thank you.
Because and the 501st also, if I'm not, aren't those the guys that run around and do the different appearances and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's cool about those guys is Lucasfilm, because they have like all these film-ready costumes, they were actually used in, what was it, Rogue One, Solo?
Rogue One, and even Mandalorian too.
Yes, right. And The Mandalorian. So even though they were used as extras, man, I would love to see something that focused on them. Make the 501st canon, like make them an actual canonized group, and then sure, do a spin-off series, or maybe have them featured prominently in, say, Obi-Wan, Mandalorian, do a comic, do a novel. I think it'd be a great idea. Yeah.
Kix also said the name Kix is a clone medic from the Clone Wars. It's that person's favorite character. All right, cool. I'll learn something today.
Yeah.
Never knew that one.
Okay.
I might have forgotten. I might have forgotten about that one.
You did. Because let's be honest, it's been a while since you or I have actually watched the Clone Wars. Well, we're watching the new one, right? But it's been
the new ones, right?
Yeah, because people have brought up stuff from like season 2 or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, which one was that again? So,
right.
And there's so much in the Clone Wars that, each one of the story arcs has so much information. Oh, speaking of which, I haven't seen it yet, but have you had a chance to see the latest episode of Clone Wars?
That's the one that, let's see, the one I last saw was where they were basically getting away from the Pikes, and
I think that was
they almost got away.
Oh, really? So you didn't even see
the one that just came.
Well, they're continuing on with the Pike thing, because at the at the end of last week's episode, they were still in prison, like they tried to break out or whatever, and then
Break
they were
out. Yep.
recaptured. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious as to where that ends, because
How
I
they're
think
gonna get out? Yeah.
exactly, because I think that this is going to be the last episode of that particular story arc. I don't know. So it's going to be that's
Okay.
going to be really interesting. But yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely.
that was a really good point, making the 501st a legitimate group in canon, and then either feature them in one of the existing series or, do some sort of a spin-off thing. We got anybody else?
Nope, not yet.
All right.
But Kix is hanging in there with us. I appreciate it. They said they wandered on to Twitch and ran into brothers in Star Wars. And so, hey, welcome.
Yeah. No, that's like I said, we're really trying to grow on the Twitch community because, like I said, that's its own little thing. I mean, I had heard of Twitch, being that I'm a gamer, but I wasn't like really one of those gamers where, I was either like broadcasting the games and doing all that stuff like what they do on Twitch, or watching them. I mean, I love me some Call of Duty now. I mean, I play it every day. Every day, and I play like 4 or 5 games a day. And I'm okay. I'll get between like 10 or 12 to 16 kills, maybe 20. And maybe less than half of that in deaths. So I'm okay. And so sometimes I'll get like the play of the game, or like I'm number 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. But then there's other games that I'll play where I'm just not that great. But Twitch now has such a great community, and it's going beyond the gaming world now, that I really wanted to build part of our head-to-head community specifically in Twitch, which is why I would really love to do some Twitch-specific, so I said it right this time, Twitch-specific shows that you and I do where we're just interacting with them. Much like how we do that with YouTube, where we have kind of our YouTube-specific stuff. And then this show, which is basically our flagship main show, this one is the one that I want to just be cross-platform, like all platforms. So yes, if you're on Twitch right now and you're watching this, tell everybody you know. Bring them in. Let's talk a bunch of Star Wars, because that's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this.
Definitely. Kix wanted to wish us and our families more happiness and health during this difficult time, and to be careful, and our friends too. Thanks, Kix. I appreciate it. You as well. Best well wishes to you and your families and friends. Everybody's going through this right now. People unfortunately are losing loved ones and friends to this, and it's a crazy time. But hopefully, like I said, you guys can keep joining us here on a head-to-head, so we can kind of take your mind off of it for a little bit, and get away from the coronavirus, and just enjoy something we love, and that's talking Star Wars.
Yeah, and we love talking Star Wars with each other, but we also love talking to you guys. That's what it's really all about, is this whole interactive discussion, and just creating a community, and just taking our mind off of our problems for a little while, and talk about something we love. All right.
Well, especially taking our minds off our problems, I think it might be time to get my carry out of my Cantina.
I'll join you.
The service is really good here.
Absolutely. We've been here for a while.
Yes.
All right. So what do we got next?
Next, we have Duel of the Fates. All right. So this week we have, who will win a duel between Darth Maul or Asajj Ventress?
I was like, this is good. This is a good matchup.
Yes.
So applause to you for coming up with this one.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, this is seriously. This one's really good, because there's so much that you could talk about, especially if you're kind of nerdy about this stuff like we are. Because in a lot of ways, they're kind of evenly matched, in my opinion.
Yes, there's very slight differences between the two.
Exactly. And here's the thing, too. You also have to stop and consider the fact that if Darth Maul's story had ended when he was basically split in half at the end of episode 1, it might be a little bit different, but we've seen his story continue on. Spoiler alert, in the Clone Wars, then into a little bit into Rebels, and we even saw him at the end of Solo. So Darth Maul's been kind of peppered all around the franchise. So he's grown a little bit. Now, of course, he gave up his Darth status, and he's no doubt a good fighter still, but he's not. I don't know if he's as in tune with the dark side as he used to be. That said, I'm gonna go with Asajj Ventress. And
Wow.
I know. It's probably
I didn't see that one coming from
choice.
you. I definitely thought you were going Maul on this one.
No, and I'll tell you why. Because if you really stop, it would be tempting to go with Maul. It really would, because just the fact that he was one of the top Darths, right? He was like one of the Emperor's apprentices. But you got to look at in totality. Asajj Ventress studied under Dooku, and she actually fought Dooku and nearly beat him. She fought Anakin and nearly beat him. She's fought like all these great Jedi. Then if you read the New Dawn book, which was essentially an unused Clone Wars script, I mean, she's really powerful. She's powerful in the dark side, and she's an amazing fighter. And I actually think that if you look at things in totality, she's a little bit better fighter than Maul.
Yeah, I think that my thing is, I think that overall, I think she's a better fighter than Maul when it comes to combat, just hand-to-hand combat, or if you're talking about, lightsaber duel. But I think, and quite frankly, I mean, my answer aligns with you with Asajj Ventress. I think overall, Asajj Ventress is the better between, or will ultimately win between the two. However, I think Maul is more powerful in the Force than Asajj.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Simply because, and the only reason why I say that is because, when you look at it from the perspective of, and this is the biggest thing, is that he was the apprentice of the Emperor.
Right.
As opposed to Dooku. Now, I think the reason the Asajj could never become a Sith Lord was just only because Palpatine was still around, and then Dooku was his apprentice. So there can only be two. So Asajj could never ascend to that rank of Sith Lord. And I think that if Asajj actually had killed Dooku, one, she would have earned that rightful place as the Emperor's new apprentice. Or if Dooku would have killed the Emperor, then she probably would have gotten promoted to Sith Lord. But the fact that Maul was actually a Sith Lord, I think says something as far as his study of the Sith ways and understanding the Force to a degree. We really don't see Maul use the Force too much in the sense of the movies. However, on the Clone Wars, you do get to see it a lot of times where he's using the Force a lot. And as far as foreseeing into the future, looking into different things, even his whole hunt for Obi-Wan, he's really like in tune with the Force. And I think that's what makes him more powerful than Asajj. But I think the thing that where Maul will lose the fight, and this is why I give the edge to Asajj Ventress, is that Maul isn't as patient. Asajj is more, she's an assassin by trade. So she's naturally just patient. She understands. And because Dooku has instilled so much into her, and Dooku's always instilled patience. Whereas Maul is probably overwhelmed with power, thinking like, okay, well, I've had the Emperor train me. No one can get in my way. That arrogance blinds him, and I think that's what ultimately make him lose to Asajj Ventress.
Well, and you bring up a good point because you basically qualified my statement, but you added another dimension to it, which was the whole patience thing, the assassin thing, which clearly, yes, that's what makes her superior in most of the ways. And the other thing that you have to look at too is that, yes, Maul was not only impatient, which patience really is more of a Jedi trait, honestly, because, rage, fear, hatred, anger, all that stuff is what fuels the Sith. And so patience is like the exact opposite of that. But what's even more interesting is when you factor in the whole Night Sisters connection and everything else. Maul, even though he didn't have the patience, he had perseverance. And I think that had a lot to do with him being able to, I don't know, almost like meditate or whatever. And he was powerful in his own right. And that's what I'm saying. It's like they're kind of even though I would definitely give the edge to Asajj without question. Like I said, because I've read a lot of the other source material that Asajj was in. Same thing with Maul, because Maul was in a lot of different comics and, books and stuff like that. But I don't know. There's something deadly and cunning about Asajj that's lacking in Maul. Maul's scary. Maul's more of a blunt instrument, whereas Asajj is very cold, calculating. And it's also interesting, too, because she kind of turned a little bit. Not really completely to the light side or anything like that, but it did give her a little bit of a different perspective. So I'm really curious on, unfortunately we won't really see that because she was killed. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I definitely think in this particular matchup that would be the case. Now let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you, but I'm also going to ask anybody out there who's watching this right now. You can let us know in the chats. Do you think there is
because
ever...
Kix is already...
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
So here's the thing. Do you guys think... Well, first of all, do you agree that Asajj would be the one that would beat Maul, right? But here's the thing. If you do you think that there's a point where Maul would be the one that would beat her? Because, they kind of went through some different story arcs and things like that. So it's conceivable. So what do they say? What does Kix say?
All right. Well, one, Kix is contacting us all the way from Russia. So wow. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I can't even get people in my own neighborhood to watch the show sometimes. So big time shout out to you, Kix.
So Kix says, I think Darth Maul is stronger due to the fact that he survived so much and survived thanks to the dark side of the Force and anger towards Obi-Wan, which accumulated in him. While Asajj Ventress, don't know. Also says, do not be afraid of spoilers, reread and review everything that is possible.
Don't worry, that's basically what this is all about. We're not... We try to be somewhat respectful, so like if something comes out, like for instance, we were going a little bit back and forth with The Mandalorian because The Mandalorian came out in the US first, but it didn't hit the rest of the world until like a couple of months ago. So we were really careful. What we did was we did a separate review show for The Mandalorian and tried to keep it as much, at least spoiler stuff, out of our normal show. But you do bring up a good point, and that is that Maul has survived being cut in half, all kinds of other crazy things that were done to him.
Fried by Palpatine.
Didn't the Night Sisters do something to him too? Wasn't there like some weird spell or something I remember something in the Clone Wars. I mean, Guy
It seems to
is
me that a battle of the sons of Dathomir could not stand witches, and he would have simply wiped into power with rage.
oh
Also
wait,
said Obi-Wan
the
was able.
brother.
Hmm?
The brother, his older brother.
uh, so, Savage.
Yeah. He did a bunch of crap to him
Yeah.
too, right? So he's been through some
Yep.
stuff. And it's
Yeah.
true. Asajj has been through a few things too, but Maul does definitely have the edge on that one.
Yeah. In this book, you see like Dooku, man, this blast Asajj Ventress with some force lightning. I mean, I was just like, dang.
What, in
Yeah,
the book you're
Savage
reading
oppressed.
now?
Yep.
Really? Asajj
Yeah.
is in it?
He's basically like Asajj Ventress is in this book because she's basically Dooku is basically having this conversation with her about like he basically asked her to tell him the truth and she lied to him, so he blasted her with force lightning, and he's like, don't make me do that to you again. I mean, it's like, dang. I mean, he's like the dad just laying a smackdown on her, man. It's crazy.
Well, you know what?
Kix
I have
also
a feeling. Wait, go ahead.
Yeah, Kix also said Obi-Wan was able to defeat Maul by being a Padawan, and Asajj he could not overcome being already a master, and together with Obi-Wan and along with Anakin on the other hand. So basically Kix is saying like, okay, Obi-Wan was able to defeat Maul being a Padawan, but couldn't beat Asajj Ventress being a master, and he had help from Anakin. Good point.
Yep, very good point. But the thing is, what I was going to say was I have a feeling that when Dooku first learned Force Lightning, that was kind of like his thing. He's like, ooh, this is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this. Like, I'm going to use this all the time. Because you could tell that's just kind of his thing now.
Well, you could kind of tell that even as a kid, it's like how he, and you kind of figured out like his upbringing and just how he went about things, how different he was from all the other Padawans. And like, he's pretty much been the same guy, like, all through life. They even made fun of him for stuff. I mean, it's hilarious, but yeah, it's really like a classic like schoolyard bully type situation. And Dooku's like, all right, keep playing with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we're going with Asajj then, right? Just so I can.
I'm going with Asajj. Yep.
So, all right.
Yep.
And I'm going with Asajj. What's Kix's final answer?
Kix. Where you at? I think Kix is probably going to go with Maul. But
going with Maul?
Maybe. Kix hasn't responded yet, but I'm sure we'll get it soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get it soon. Well, you know, and there's always a delay with these things too. All right, are you ready to move on to our next next segment? All right, yes. What do we got?
Yes, sir. Next, we have From a Certain Point of View.
All right, certain point of view. This is our main topic. So basically, when you guys see the title of the show, this is it. This is what we're talking about. All right.
Yep.
What are we talking about?
Right.
Has Yoda been reborn? What's up with that?
Yeah. So, you know, there's been a lot of talk, and, you know, there's always been a mystique and love for Yoda, you know, but it seems like he's becoming the new focal point, sort of kind of this new wave of Star Wars, if you will, from The Mandalorian to now we're getting, you know, rumors that he's definitely going to be a part of the whole High Republic era. You know, I'm seeing that, you know, a lot of people are kind of infatuated with Yoda, and even Kathleen Kennedy, we made mention before that Kathleen Kennedy basically wanted to make Baby Yoda a reborn Yoda, and the fact that, you know, he knows kind of where he knows who he is, but he just hasn't developed into that yet, or his body hasn't caught up to basically his wisdom. So he's almost like waiting to kind of resurge back into Yoda again, which I think is asinine and crazy. But I'm seeing that a lot of people are really kind of taking, and Yoda's always been one of my favorite characters. Like, I mean, if you really like,
yeah,
if you want to ask me like who my favorite, like on the light side of the Force, it was definitely Yoda. Not because he's the most powerful, because in as we also just mentioned, that Luke eventually eclipsed him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that Yoda's wisdom has always resonated with me. I've always loved um, his knowledge and how he actually kind of disseminated things amongst different Jedi. He even had a sense of humor, just he's just like that cool kind of granddad. Even reading this book, where they basically took their Padawans to this festival where there was like this Jedi demonstration, and the kids are running around, and Sifo Dyas and Dooku are basically best friends, and Sifo Dyas is running around, and he was actually mocking Yoda, and didn't know that Yoda was standing there, and actually knocked Yoda over by running because he was running around. And Dooku and Sifo Dyas were freaking out. They were like, "Oh crap!" And but Yoda kind of shrugged it off. Was like, "Yeah, you need to kind of pay attention where you're going, youngling."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like all the other Jedi Masters are like want to discipline them, and Yoda's just like, "No, they're just kids. It's cool." And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just he's not as starchy and stuck up as most people would think that he would be, because he really truly does have a grasp and understanding of everything. So I'm just wondering, like, okay, do you think one, because even when they first started talking about spinoff movies, Yoda was one of them. They wanted to actually do a spinoff movie on Yoda. And so now we're seeing, okay, a Yoda-like species on The Mandalorian. We're talking about him now with the High Republic era. So do you think there's going to be a rebirth or resurgence of like a bunch of Yoda material coming out soon?
Yeah, it does definitely seem to be the direction they're moving. I mean, I would agree, because I got to say, when I first saw that, this is what you wanted to do for the main topic, at first I was confused. I'm like, didn't we talk about that already? But you're totally correct in the sense of it's not just, is Baby Yoda like a reincarnation of Yoda, and are we going to learn that maybe in season 2 or beyond? But it's also just like this whole Yoda resurgence. Like, people are wanting more Yoda. So I still don't know if we're going to get like a true standalone film. I don't really think that that's in the cards, at least not this next decade. Because the next film, and this is something that, everybody forgets, there's still a film that's slated to be released in 2022. We don't know what it is. We don't know who's directing it. We don't know what the subject matter is. We have no idea what it is. Ever since Benioff and Weiss dropped out of their project, which probably would have been an Old Republic movie, then, of course, you have Rian Johnson with this trilogy that he has, but nobody's talked about, moving forward with it. So we really don't know what this movie is about. Oh, and then there was also the Kevin Feige thing, too. Who knows what that was about? Maybe that is a movie we're getting in 2022. We don't know. So the fact that there's this renewed interest in Yoda, I think what you're going to see is obviously an appearance in the High Republic. I think the High Republic is where you're going to see a little bit more Yoda. Maybe the Mandalorian. I mean, obviously he's technically dead. I don't think that Filoni and Favreau are going to allow Baby Yoda to be actually Yoda, like a reincarnated version. I can't see that happening. On the other hand, if Kathleen Kennedy wants it, but then again, we were talking last week about how she's sort of like stepped back and she's sort of letting them doing whatever they want with The Mandalorian, which is smart. It's like the first smart thing she's done since hiring JJ for The Force Awakens. But be that as it may, I think we might get some more comics, some more novels, and I think they're setting it all up for the High Republic. Very much the same way that a lot of the novels dealt with Palpatine and the fact that he was obsessed with the unknown regions and he heard darkness calling, and there were just a lot of little things setting up that I think that they were setting up his appearance in The Rise of Skywalker. I truly believe that's what that was all about. And I really enjoy it. I love it when they connect canon together. So little things that you see in a book or a comic shows up in a movie or vice versa. It's it's expanding the continuity. It's creating not just a cinematic universe, but a cross-platform universe. And I think that if Star Wars, well, if Lucasfilm is smart, that's the direction they're going to go.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that you know, it's always great when you can actually tie in, okay, this book and this comic kind of started this thing, and then we see it in a movie form, or they
Mm-hmm.
address it in that form. So it's like, all right, that confirms that happened. Okay, cool. Now we can build upon that. I think that with Yoda, though, I think once again, I think he's just kind of once again become one of those pivotal figures, and especially, because everybody was like, all right, well, the Skywalker thing is over with, at least as far as we know. So, of course, people want to expand the universe. We're
Mm-hmm.
always talking about expanding the universe. Don't always go to the characters that we know. So let me ask you this question, and I know you can ask, Kix, if you're still listening. You know, do you think that we need to know a lot more about Yoda? Do you want to know, I should say, more about Yoda? Or is it better that he's kind of like that Michael Myers, where you just like, he's powerful, what he can do, who he is, but we don't need to know where did he come from, who was his master, how long did he train, blah, 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 blah. Like, do we need all this in-depth knowledge on Yoda? Or is it just safe to say that just let Yoda be Yoda?
Well, my answer to that would be exactly what they're doing with the High Republic. I think that we're going to see a younger Yoda, which is obviously what I think people really wanted to do. They really wanted to see Yoda in his prime. At first we thought maybe in the prequel era we were going to get it, but prequel era is too close to the original trilogy era.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't really do that. And then of course there was talk about a whole Old Republic movie. Problem with that though is that that's before Yoda. So now they create this whole High Republic era. And now you have Yoda in this sweet spot where he's old enough that he's not like a little toddler running around like baby Yoda, but at the same time, he's not super old either. So this should be pretty much where we've always wanted to see him. And I think whatever we would find out about him in this series is exactly what we would need to know. I don't think we need to know about his upbringing. I don't think we need to know about any of that stuff. We just need to know what made Yoda Yoda and to see him in action and see him in his prime. If they want to explore beyond that, they could totally do what they've done with Tarkin and Thrawn and some of these others, where they just have a novel called Yoda, much like what they did with Ahsoka. They could do like a novel that sort of gives you a history without necessarily trying to clutter it up in a movie or even a TV series.
Do you think that we need to know where Yoda's from?
I think that
Because George
eventually they
Lucas
do
has
need
always
to.
been kind of quiet about that.
Yeah, well, not just quiet. He actually had a directive saying that was the one thing that Yoda's species would never be revealed. He never did it, and he was trying to make it so Disney wouldn't. Now, it seems like he's changing his mind a little bit, because once Baby Yoda appeared in The Mandalorian, you have to address it now. I mean, sure, you had Yaddle pop up in the prequel trilogy, but this is a little bit different. And the whole premise, at least what's been setting up for season 2, is the Mandalorian has to try to take Baby Yoda back to its homeworld, wherever that is. So it seems like we're going to get some answers. But again, it's really tough. I would say now we need to know. I don't necessarily think that before the Mandalorian we needed to know.
Okay. So and I kind of agree with that. I mean, I think that I like kind of the mystery of Yoda, though. I like the
Yeah.
fact that we don't know that much about him. We just know, oh, that's Yoda. We know he's like the wise, master. I mean, I would love to see him, of course, a younger version of him, just simply because I would love to see like of course, how did his ascent into the Jedi Council? Like as far as the political side, like how did he kind of create that whole thing? Because I don't think this is a council just yet in the High
No,
Republic.
not
I don't
quite.
think the Jedi Council had been formed, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I just want to figure out, like, okay, how did the structure and everything kind of almost like the government of the Jedi Order? And I think that's pretty much what we're going to get in the High Republic, and that's what I'm most curious about. Just simply because, we've heard things with the Sith, with the Rule of Two, and how that became, because it's like, all right, the apprentice should be wanting to eclipse the master by then killing them and then ascending to the rank of master, blah 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 blah. In the High Republic, did this whole youngling thing was that back then, or did that come later with Yoda saying like, no, we need to get them when they're like babies? Because he saw something in the High Republic era that's like, you know what, if we don't get them younger than this, then this could be a problem. You see what I'm saying? So like,
Yeah,
I
no, that
want to
makes
see
sense.
that aspect of it.
So
Yeah.
basically, we need more of an origin of the Jedi. Well, not like a true origin, but at least an origin
just
of what we
more.
think of from the modern Jedi, really.
Right. And that way we can understand, like, okay, now we can understand that whole Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith
Mm-hmm.
order, because we saw like what kind of happened prior to. No different than Rogue One. Like, everybody said, well, what do we need to know Rogue One? But Rogue One gives so much backdrop to Episode 4.
Oh, totally.
And it's just like, and you're like, whoa, okay. Yeah, I'm glad they made this movie.
Yeah, now here's the thing. The Michael Myers thing that you sort of made in passing was a brilliant comparison,
Mm-hmm.
because we knew from John Carpenter's original, okay, he was a little kid, he kills his sister, they put him away, he escapes. Whereas with Rob Zombie's version, he tried to get into the whole like childhood of Michael Myers and what made him what he was.
Yeah.
And it's kind
The
of like
psychology of it all.
right. And on one hand, it was interesting, and there's definitely something to be said for that. On the other hand, though, I think you're right. I think it's better that we don't know. We get just enough information to understand the character, but maybe we don't need that much. And that's sort of where I'm at. It's like on one hand, there's some information we need because they open the door. But on the other hand, they don't need to like saturate us with it. I don't need Yoda's childhood.
Good. Yeah. Exactly. Like, who's his best friend growing up?
Right,
and
yeah, exactly.
What's his favorite food, and who was his parents? I don't care.
Exactly. Right. Because then we're going to find out
so
that
Kix
he's
is
like,
back.
Oh, Kix is back. Okay. What do we got?
Yep. Kix says, I think the story of Yoda is one of the most mysterious in the whole universe, and it would be nice to hear. But on the other hand, knowing how Disney does it, I feel you, Kix, on that one.
It twists the knife a little
it would be
bit,
interesting,
right?
but is Disney going to screw it up? No, I completely agree with that one.
It's not a
It's like,
completely
you got to do it
undeserved
right.
comment. Well, that's the problem.
No,
you know what? And I promise, I will not get on my whole Disney's doing it wrong. They should have made a plan soapbox. Refer to some previous episodes, and you'll see how I feel about that. All right. But what about you guys? I mean, we know what Kix thinks. If you're watching this on the replay, don't forget to like the video and, hit the subscribe button. See when we're going live next. See the new content that we're putting on there. If you're with us live right now, let us know in the chat section on whatever social media that you're following and you're seeing this stream. All right. Next is going to be one of my favorite segments. Let's see if I can time this right. It's a segment that we call Clear Your Mind. That's right.
And look, it's Yoda again.
It is Yoda. See, it's a Yoda-centric show. Even we're promoting them.
And apparently, yep. And it's another High Republic thing too, because
it is.
That's been the focal point lately.
It really is. So what's the first one, and who's it from?
The first question comes from John Makovic, and he asks, do you think the High Republic should be made into a movie or a streaming series or Disney series? So should the High Republic be made into a movie or a series?
Movie or series?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm gonna chicken out and I'm gonna say both. I'm gonna say both.
I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna actually ask a question that might actually lend some clarity to this.
Well, why not? You already asked how big the Sarlacc pit was a couple weeks ago. So apparently you have no problem submitting your own questions to our own show.
This is just an attachment. It's an attachment. I know
Little
Jedi is supposed to
addendum.
be devoid of attachment, but fortunately, I'm on the Sith side, so it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I do what I
All
want.
right.
No, but
Apparently.
um, so what do you think should constitute a movie versus a series? I think that would probably help people kind of decide like what should be a series, what should be a movie.
Man, that's probably a harder question to answer than the original one. Well, okay.
Well, okay,
It's
go ahead.
whatever can fit. So if it's a story, whether it's a trilogy or a singular story, if it fits neatly within the format of a movie, 2 hour, 2.5 hour movie, a little bit of a story arc, cool. So a good example of that would be take the Karate Kid. The Karate Kid, if you look at the plot of that, was a movie. You would not want that as a series. On the other hand, if you look at Cobra Kai, which of course is a YouTube series, that needs to be a series because now you have this development of characters over a greater period of time. Or even if it's not a greater period of time within the story, you need more time to develop the individual stories. So I really think it just depends on what the plot is and, what the story arc overall is and what you're trying to do would determine whether it's a movie or whether it remains like a series. So in the case of the High Republic, I say both, and I'll tell you why. And that is it depends on what the story you're telling. If you're trying to I think you should do a High Republic series and then have movies that have like a standalone, storyline or something.
See, for me, I would say I will go with it should all just be a series, in my opinion. I think because this is one of those things almost like Game of Thrones. It's like I feel like it
Mm-hmm.
has that kind of weight to it. I feel like it has that kind of context. And you really like when you're dealing with it, and I think because you're talking about an era. So an era just means like a vast amount of time. So I think you can't encapsulate that in a 2.5, 3 hour movie, or even if you did like a quote unquote trilogy and try to explain it, yeah, you can get a lot more done, but I still feel like there'll still be more than you can, like I said, Game of Thrones, the first season, if you just took the first season of Game of Thrones, it's basically a trilogy, if you will. You could break
Mm-hmm.
that up into basically a trilogy of movies, but you still wouldn't flush out all the development of all these characters. And I think that's why people really fell in love with Game of Thrones, even series like Ozark right now that everybody's really been latching on to. So I think for something like the High Republic, I think that is something that you could really do as a as a series. Now, if you want to do something like the Fall of Dooku, shall we say, that's more of a movie because you got okay. It has to start at one spot. You can start at one spot and end at another spot and get there. No different than how they did with like Anakin. Okay, Phantom Menace. You start him as here. Attack of the Clones. He's here. Revenge of the Sith. He's here. At the end, he's Darth Vader. You can encapsulate that you can sandwich that into one big story out of 3 movies. But when you're talking about an era, I think now you have to go serious because now you got to, especially with all these different characters that we have. Now we have to see, okay, how did this person get here? Why does this person hate that person? How did this side look and view this thing? And so I think that's one of the things that, for me, kind of that piggybacks off your point that it's based upon the story, definitely. But I think when you're talking about an extended period of time, I think that requires a series.
Well, now, don't get me wrong. I agree with everything you just said. But and I'm going to throw this back on you. When we were watching the 24 series, one of the things I kept hearing you say was, oh man, they're going to come out with a 24 movie and that's going to be amazing and I can't wait. That's where I'm coming from. Why not have it be a series, and then if you want to do individual theatrical releases where the story fits more the parameters of a movie, like a lot of the examples you gave. You know what I mean? It's just like, why can't we have both? Now, if you're
Well,
going to limit me to either or, then I'm going series all the way.
Okay. I'm going to say, well, to answer your original question about the 24 thing. Yeah. One, I would like to make note, and I'm man enough to say this. I was younger at the time. I didn't have as much experience and knowledge as I do now.
Oh, yeah, because it supports your current point.
Well, no, I mean, no, I think it's one of those things.
You were younger. All right.
I was.
Hit him again, I was still Grandpa.
Like in my 20s.
No, you weren't that young.
I was still in my 20s. Like,
well, yeah, I guess. All right. Carry on.
So, so I know that, you know, and at the time, I think I was just really excited about it. But, and, you know, I've always been a movie person. So I've always kind of liked the experience of going to the movies. So to see a 24 thing fleshed out. And I think the thing is for me at that time was that I didn't, much like, you know, a Sith, I don't have patience. So I hated waiting to see the next week. I mean, I kind of liked it eventually, but I originally kind of hated like waiting to see, you know, the next episode. Mm-hmm. So when I had the box sets that you lent me, yeah, I could watch them back to back. I could binge watch, and I'm like, okay, cool. But then like when I actually caught up to when it was on television, and I had to wait a week, it was like, this is so agonizing.
When I know the days before streaming, right?
Exactly. You know, I can actually just sit and just watch a movie. Okay, I know it's going to end. At least I get the full, and it's longer. It's, you know, it's more than an hour because that, you know, that's the thing about 24 is only an hour show where you give me 2 hours to 3 hours, I can get more in there. But ultimately now having more knowledge and actually watching shows like Game of Thrones and, you know, other like series like that, where you're dropping like, okay, 10 episodes at one time or whatnot, you know, now it's like, okay, I could kind of get with this because I'm watching the character development.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. And this is what I was thinking for 24, what I think they should have done. And I think they could do this with the High Republic if they really wanted to. Why not do a thing to where you have a series, right? Let's say it's 10 episodes, because that seems to be the average nowadays. 10-episode series. Mm-hmm. At the end of that season, you have a movie that either resolves some things that happen in the season or just continues the storyline and acts as a bridge between seasons 1 and 2. Again, I mean, I could do that.
I mean, that would be cool.
Okay. That's the thing.
And that's something we've never seen done before, though. I could hang with that.
Yeah, well, because movies have a different vibe. And Star Wars...
Yeah, they do.
It got its start in the movies. A Star Wars movie just feels different. Now, granted...
It does.
You would have to compare this to the standalone films because the saga films have a very definitive look that they're not going to go beyond. I mean, unless they do an episode 10, 11, 12, whatever, you know, you're not going to get a High Republic movie that feels at least like the saga films. But there's definitely a feel that a Star Wars movie has. Rogue One, Solo are good examples of this. And Star Wars ultimately belongs in the theater. I do think that their future is going to rely heavily on television, but at the same time, you have to have the movies to support it. So either the thing has to culminate in a movie, so maybe you set something up in the season on TV, but then it gets resolved or continued in the movies, or you just have standalone plots that lend itself more to a theatrical release, much like what you pointed out with Dooku, like the Fall of Dooku. because something like the Fall of Dooku would fit well, say, within a 3 or 4 episode story arc in something like the Clone Wars. But certainly, you could do a really killer movie off of it, or even a trilogy. So I totally agree with that. But again, if we're going an either or, yeah, I'd have to lean on a series because there's just the Game of Thrones thing was a good example. I mean, there's just too much. You have to explore it over, well, not just a series of episodes, like a 10 episode thing, which, let's face it, would be like a 5 or 10 hour movie. But you also have to do it over multiple seasons, especially because you're dealing with a brand new era. I mean, nobody knows anything about the High Republic. I mean, granted, the books are coming out, but you know, how many people realistically are going to go out and read the books? We will. But the fact of the matter is, the average fan's not going to.
Right.
So you have to do movie or TV. All right, but what about you guys? Do you agree with us? I mean, really, that wouldn't be hard to do because we threw out like 3 different, possible things, right? But would you guys rather see the High Republic live in movies or a TV series or both? Let's do it that. Leave it in the comments below. If you're watching us live, chat with us live. Don't forget, of course, if you're hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. All right, what do we got next?
So, and he asked, where would you like to see the Kenobi series go storyline
today? Where would I answer this? Because of the two of us. So, and this is a really good example that ties into what we were just talking about. Because remember, Obi-Wan started out as a movie. They were all set to make it. Then they decided not to make it. So now it's a TV series. So, all that said, I think, and again, but I think that what they should cover his training with Qui-Gon, because Yoda alluded to that, on Tatooine, how he's balancing not using the Force, but still his Ahsoka storyline right now. Because, and, which I brought this up last week, they had that whole thing in Order 66 came through, and it's like, okay, I can't use, but at the same time, I have the power to fix a lot of these issues, and I don't want to just, because I'm afraid to use my power, something that would bring about injustice. So those are them do some stuff. I can hang with that, but I would like to see the struggles of him having to watch over Luke, getting used to this post-Jedi universe, and how he's going to fit into it. Because if you look at him in episode, I don't know what it is with these guys, though, and their names. It's like, okay, we're going to hide Luke. So he's called Luke Skywalker. That's kind of a red flag. And it's kind of like Obi-Wan's in hiding. But a common name like Smith or Jones, I'm thinking maybe you should have worked on that. I don't know. What do you think?
And I know it kind of sounds well, but I'm honestly just truly curious as in like you said in the beginning, at first I was kind of like, really? Like, what are you going to talk about Obi-Wan for? Like, okay, he lived on Tatooine. He was just kind of hanging out, watching over. But to that point, and that was the thing, like they all went to remote places and he knew Vader wasn't going to go back to Tatooine. That's why it was like the safest place to hide, because he knew Vader would never want to go back to Dagobah, which is pretty much like nothing lives there. So it's just like you wouldn't even think to even look for people at that point. And of course, he's always thought, Luke was, his kids were dead anyway from childbirth. So, Luke really didn't make a name for himself until he joined up with the rebels.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing.
He was kind of like,
just to correct one point, Vader did actually go to Tatooine. Now, granted, I know that Obi-Wan probably felt like, okay, this is definitely going to be a safe choice, but Vader did go to Tatooine. It was actually pretty cool, too, because he faced Watto, and, that was pretty sweet. Speaking of which, the new Darth Vader comic is coming out like any day now. The 2020 series. It's been really good. It's been really good. So if you guys haven't checked it out, and Daryl, if you haven't checked it out, they're only on issue 3, I think. I think it's the one that's coming out. So definitely check it out. It's got this whole like Padme storyline, and it's the thing I like about the Darth Vader comics is that they're different. Every year they come out with a new story arc for them. And just when you think that you found out everything you can about them, they come up with something else. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. So, definitely check it out. But getting back to Obi-Wan, that's a similar type of a thing, that just when you think you've reached the end of his story, I think there's more to tell. And because he does have to protect Luke, I don't think that Vader was actively looking for him because, like you said, and we find this out in the latest Star Wars comic, he didn't even know about Luke's existence until he blew up the Death Star. And then he got angry, and then he started trying to kill everybody that hid the information from him. So, from that standpoint, Luke was pretty safe as a kid. Now, whether the Emperor knew, who knows? I mean, we only found out, at the end of Rise of Skywalker, that Leia and Luke knew that Rey was a Palpatine. It's like, when were you going to drop that little bit of information?
You got to kind of wonder, too, like, who was Vader going to... I mean, I have to just read it. But you just got to wonder, like, okay, well, who else would know outside of the Palpatine? I mean, unless you're talking about, like, maybe Tarkin or something like that. Because, like, who else are you going to kill? Because, one, most of the people don't even know that Vader is Anakin anyway. So it's not like he's like, why didn't you tell me? Like, dude, I don't even know who you are. I mean, everybody, if you read all the other books, everybody just know this dude in a black helmet showed up out of nowhere.
That's true.
I mean,
well, it's interesting.
So it's just like,
how
the heck are you supposed to know, dude?
Right. You're definitely going to have to read it because it's an interesting take. And they're not taking it from the standpoint so much of like, okay, he's a Skywalker. It's almost like, well, where did this guy, who was really powerful in the Force or whatever, where did he come from? Why didn't you know? I'm trying to remember everything, actually. But he's on a mission, especially when he finds out he's a Skywalker, when he finds out his name. Oh, it's on. And it's a really good series. Really good series. Highly recommended. But I don't know. What about you guys? Where do you guys think that the Obi-Wan storyline should go? Because remember, Daryl, you were not the only one who at first was kind of like an Obi-Wan movie or series. Who needs it? But what's funny is, over time, everybody's kind of come around to it. And now it's like the number one requested thing. So, there is that. So, hopefully, our boy Obi-Wan makes a triumphant return. I'm so happy that Ewan McGregor's in the role. He's older, so he's a little bit closer to where Obi-Wan was. So I'm looking forward to a really cool series with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's basically the man, in my opinion. And I say this because, I mean, look at him. He looks all serious. He's following the rules. He's basically a guy who's always played it a little bit close to the vest, a little bit, of a rule follower. But he was a very, a varied, skilled warrior. And that's what I like about him. But what about you guys? What do you guys think? Do you think that Obi-Wan, are you looking forward to the movie or the TV series rather? And if you are, what do you think that the storyline should be? Should he stay on Tatooine? Should he leave Tatooine? What do you think? Let us know in the comments section below. All right, well, what do you think? It's going to do it for our show today. All right. So make sure that you guys join us next week. We're going to do this every Friday at 8 o'clock. And, as time moves on, we're going to try to work out some of these bugs. And hopefully we'll get everything smooth soon. Like I said, show's new to live streaming, so bear with us. We'll get it. And hopefully you guys stay safe out there with this virus. It really is getting serious, especially here in the U.S. So stay safe and stay home. And with that, I'm Eric Vansel. And I think we lost Daryl's audio there. Well, I'm Eric Vansel.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
Hey, you're back. All right. So now we can do this
man.
right.
Sorry about that.
All right. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the force be with you.
Always.
I love the delay. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.